In the glass-walled conference room of Hartwick and Partners, I sat with my back straight as a rod, watching my soon-to-be ex-husband James speak in that smooth, practiced tone he reserved for high-value clients. His navy Tom Ford suit was impeccable as always, his silver cufflinks catching the light as he gestured confidently. As I was saying, Blackstone Developments is in excellent hands with our team. We've handled similar property portfolios for 20 years, and our track record speaks for itself. The clients, two silver-haired men and a woman with a sharp bob, nodded appreciatively. Then James did something I'd seen him do countless times before, but never to me. He lowered his voice conspiratorially, adding, "I'd typically have Elizabeth present the financial projections, but she's been under considerable strain lately. Divorce is difficult for everyone, but some handle it better than others." I felt my chest tighten as his words hung in the air. The woman, Margaret Blackstone, I presumed, shot me a look of pity mixed with wariness. I recognized that look. It said, unstable, emotional, unreliable. "I'm perfectly capable of presenting the financial projections, James," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "After all, I developed them." James smiled thinly. "Of course you did, darling. But perhaps another time when you're feeling more centered. 13 years of marriage, 8 years as partners in the same firm, and this was what it had come to. Subtle undermining in client meetings, questioning my competence, suggesting I was emotionally fragile. It had started 3 months ago when I found the messages between James and Sophia, his 27-year-old assistant. Not just an affair, they'd been together for nearly a year. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. Instead, he looked at me with something close to relief. "I think we both know this marriage has run its course, Liz." What I hadn't expected was how quickly he'd moved to push me out of the firm we'd built together. First came the whispers among junior staff, then the gradual exclusion from key meetings, and now this, publicly suggesting I was too unstable to perform my duties. I gathered my papers, the financial projections I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. perfecting, and smiled at the clients. "If you'll excuse me, I have another meeting. James will take excellent care of you." In the ladies' room, I splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection. I was 42, with the first strands of gray appearing in my dark hair. Laugh lines had deepened around my eyes. But it was the look in those eyes that startled me, a burning intensity I hadn't seen in years. My mobile buzzed with a text from my assistant, Kim. "Marcus Blackstone called. Wants to meet privately tomorrow. Didn't want to mention it in front of James." Marcus Blackstone, Margaret's son, and the true decision-maker at Blackstone Developments. I took a deep breath, straightened my charcoal gray suit, and texted back, "Book it." That night, in the hollow emptiness of what was once our home, I opened a bottle of Cabernet and did something I should have done months ago. I began to plan. The following morning, I arrived at the Wolseley 40 minutes early for my breakfast meeting with Marcus Blackstone. I chose a quiet corner table, ordered a pot of Darjeeling, and reviewed my notes. Sleep had evaded me last night, but adrenaline kept me focused. Marcus arrived exactly on time, tall, athletic, perhaps mid-30s, with a casual confidence that contrasted sharply with James's studied formality. He ordered coffee and got straight to the point. "Mrs. Hartwick." "Ms. Reynolds," I corrected. "I'm reverting to my maiden name." He nodded approvingly. "Ms. Reynolds, I'll be frank. Your husband, your ex, has been laying groundwork suggesting you're not entirely stable. Says you've been making erratic decisions, missing deadlines." I maintained a neutral expression, though my hand tightened around my teacup. "And what do you think, Mr. Blackstone?" "I think someone who grew a boutique financial consultancy from 2 employees to 50 in 8 years isn't erratic. And I think the person who caught the taxation error in our Singapore acquisition, saving us millions, doesn't miss deadlines." I allowed myself a small smile. "That was 3 years ago. You have a good memory. For competence, always." He leaned forward. "Why is he doing this?" I considered my words carefully. "James believes the firm is his legacy. I was always supplementary. Even though your client retention rate is 40% higher?" My eyebrows rose. He really had done his research. "Especially because of that," I replied. Over the next hour, Marcus revealed that Blackstone Developments wasn't just looking for financial advisors. They needed a complete restructuring of their European holdings. involving hundreds of millions in assets. The kind of client that would cement a firm's reputation for decades. "I want to work with you, Ms. Reynolds," he said finally. "Not your husband. But I need to know if you'll still be at Hartwick and Partners next month." His question crystallized something I'd been circling for weeks. "No, Mr. Blackstone, I won't be." That afternoon, I returned to the office to find my calendar had been cleared of all client meetings for the week. My assistant, Kim, looked distressed as she explained James had reassigned them, citing concerns about my workload during a difficult personal time. In the staff kitchen, I overheard two junior associates fall silent as I entered. One looked embarrassed. The other avoided my eyes completely. The rumors were spreading. Later, James called me into his office. Behind his mahogany desk, he looked like the very image of the successful financial advisor. Distinguished, authoritative. The family photos that once decorated his bookshelf were gone, replaced by industry awards. "Elizabeth, I've been thinking about our situation," he began, his tone reasonable, concerned. "This can't be easy for you. Perhaps a leave of absence would be beneficial? 3 months, fully paid. Time to regroup." "You mean time for clients to forget me?" I replied. He sighed, the picture of patience tested. "This hostility isn't helping anyone, least of all yourself. The partners are concerned. Your emotional outbursts." "What emotional outbursts?" "Last week with the Pennington account, Caroline said you were practically in tears." Caroline, James's closest ally among the partners and godmother to Sophia's child from her first marriage. How convenient. "I've never cried at work, James. Not once in 15 years in finance." He spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness. "This is exactly what I mean. The denial, the paranoia. It's not like you, Liz. I'm worried." As he spoke, I realized something chilling. He believed it. In his narrative, I was indeed falling apart, unstable, in need of his benevolent intervention. He'd constructed a reality where he wasn't the villain. He was the reasonable one, managing a regrettable situation with a deteriorating spouse. I stood to leave, and he added casually, "Oh, and the Blackstone meeting. How did Marcus seem? Engaged?" So that was it. He was worried about the Blackstone account. "Quite engaged," I replied. "In fact, he's invited me to dinner next week to discuss their European portfolio in more detail." James's face darkened momentarily before he composed himself. "Excellent. I'll have Sophie send the details to the team." "No need," I said. "It's a personal invitation." That evening, as I packed up my office after hours, not taking anything, just organizing, I found a folder I didn't recognize in my desk drawer. Inside were printed emails between James and 2 other partners, dating back 6 months. They discussed contingency plans for Elizabeth's position and concerns about her stability long before I'd discovered his affair. The last email was from 3 weeks ago. "Legal confirms that with documented performance concerns, her equity stake can be bought out at 40% of value. Will proceed as discussed." I photographed every page with shaking hands. They hadn't just been planning to push me out, they'd been building a case to devalue my 30% ownership in the firm I'd helped create. That night, I didn't cry. Instead, I made 3 phone calls. The first to Marianne Watts, the best divorce attorney in London. The second to David Chen, a former client who'd been trying to recruit me to his investment firm for years. And the third to my younger sister, Kate, who answered immediately despite the late hour. "I need your help," I said simply. "I'm starting over." 3 weeks later, I sat in Marianne Watts's office, listening as she detailed James's latest settlement offer. "He's offering 30% of the firm's current valuation, paid over 10 years, she said, her crisp voice making the insult sound almost reasonable. "Plus the Chelsea apartment." "The apartment I owned before we were married," I clarified. Marianne nodded, her silver bob swinging. At 62, she had a reputation for being ruthlessly effective without being vindictive. Exactly what I needed. "He's also requesting a non-compete clause preventing you from working with any Hartwick and Partners clients for 5 years. I laughed, though there was no humor in it. "So I get a fraction of what I'm owed, my own property returned to me, and I'm barred from working with clients I brought to the firm. Generous." "There's more," Marianne said, her expression grave. "He's submitted documentation suggesting your judgment has been compromised. Emails from concerned colleagues, Notes from meetings where you allegedly behaved erratically. All fabricated. Of course, but cleverly so. Small inconsistencies, emotional responses that would be normal under the circumstances, all framed as signs of instability. She removed her glasses. Elizabeth, he's building a narrative, not just for the divorce, but for your professional reputation. I thought of the whispers at the office, the pitying glances, the gradually diminishing client list. It wasn't just about pushing me out. It was about discrediting me entirely. "What's our counter?" I asked. Marianne smiled thinly. "I thought you'd never ask." That afternoon, I met with Marcus Blackstone again, this time at his office overlooking the Thames. The Blackstone headquarters occupied 3 floors of gleaming steel and glass, a testament to the family's success in property development across 4 continents. "I've been reviewing your proposal," Marcus said, gesturing to the document before him. "It's exceptional work." "Thank you," I replied, though I felt little satisfaction. The proposal had taken 2 weeks of intensive work, a complete restructuring plan for Blackstone's European holdings that would save them millions in tax liabilities while creating more efficient investment pathways. "But I'm confused," he continued. "This isn't on Hartwick and Partners' letterhead." I met his gaze steadily. "Because it doesn't come from Hartwick and Partners. It comes from me, independently." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You've left the firm." "Not yet, officially, but I will be, very soon." I took a deep breath. "What I'm proposing is that Blackstone becomes the first client of my new consultancy." Marcus leaned back, studying me. "Bold move. James mentioned you were taking a leave of absence for personal reasons." "Did he?" I wasn't surprised. "Mr. Blackstone." "Marcus, please." "Marcus, I'm sure you've heard rumors about my mental state, my stability, my competence." He didn't deny it. "Business is full of rumors. These are particularly calculated ones. But rather than defend myself with words, I'd prefer to let my work speak for itself." I gestured to the proposal. "What you're holding represents 100 hours of analysis, modeling, and strategic planning. If it demonstrates instability, I'd be interested to know how." Marcus flipped through the document again, his expression unreadable. Then he looked up with a smile that transformed his serious face. "When can you start?" As I left the Blackstone building, my phone buzzed with a text from Marianne. "Meeting moved up. James and lawyers want to meet tomorrow, not next week. 2 p.m. at our offices." Interesting timing. Almost as if James had gotten wind of something that made him nervous. That evening, I received another text, this one from Caroline, the partner who'd supposedly witnessed my emotional outburst. "We need to talk, not at the office. The bar at Claridge's, 9 p.m. tonight?" I hesitated. Caroline and I had once been friends before James had gradually turned her against me. Or so I'd thought. Could this be some kind of trap? Or did she genuinely want to speak with me? At 9:15, I walked into the darkened elegance of Claridge's bar. Caroline was already there, nursing what looked like a gin and tonic, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I admitted. She signaled the waiter. "Another G&T and whatever Ms. Reynolds is having." "Macallan." "Neat," I said, then turned to Caroline. "What's this about?" She took a long sip of her drink before answering. "James asked me to testify about your behavior. To say I witnessed you having emotional breakdowns at work, making irrational decisions, threatening clients. None of which happened." "Of course not." She looked pained. "Liz, I've known you for 10 years. You're the most controlled person I've ever met. Too controlled, sometimes." The waiter brought my whiskey, and I took a grateful sip. "So why are you telling me this now?" Carolyn pulled out her phone, tapped it a few times, and slid it across the table. On the screen was an email from James to her, dated just 2 days ago. "Carolyn, need documentation of Elizabeth's unstable behavior by Friday. Specific incidents, dates, witnesses if possible. Legal says this is crucial for both firm separation and divorce proceedings. Your partnership stake depends on this. Jay, I read it twice. He's threatening you." Caroline nodded, taking back her phone. "Not just me, all the junior partners. He's made it clear, either we help construct this narrative about you, or our futures at the firm are in jeopardy. And you're showing me this because it's wrong," she said simply. "And because of what I found out yesterday." She leaned closer, lowering her voice despite the bar's ambient noise. James has been systematically transferring clients from your portfolio to his for the past year. Not just managing them while you're out, actually changing the client agreements, removing your name entirely. He's been planning this for much longer than anyone realizes. My hand tightened around my glass. Can you prove this? Caroline nodded slowly. I have access to all the client documentation. As compliance officer, I need to review any changes. She hesitated. There's more. The firm's valuation that they're using for your buyout? It's deliberately undervalued by at least 40%. How do you know? Because there's a pending merger with Anderson Global that only the senior partners know about. Once it goes through, the firm's value will nearly double. The implications hit me like a physical blow. If I accepted James's settlement now, I'd be losing not just the 70% of my current stake, but also the imminent appreciation from the merger. Why are you telling me this, Caroline? You're risking your position. She looked down at her nearly empty glass. Because 3 years ago, when I was going through my divorce and that mess with the Shanghai client happened, you covered for me. You never told anyone it was my mistake. You protected me. She met my eyes. And because what James is doing isn't just unethical, it's illegal. As we parted outside the bar, Caroline pressed a USB drive into my hand. Everything's here. Client transfers, the merger documentation, the emails about constructing a case against you. Be careful, Liz. James has more allies than you realize. And more enemies than he knows, I replied. That night, I reviewed everything on the drive. Each document, each email, each manipulated client agreement built a damning case against not just James, but the entire senior partnership. They hadn't just been trying to push me out, they'd been systematically erasing my contributions to the firm while manufacturing evidence of incompetence. At midnight, I forwarded everything to Marianne with a simple message: change of plans for tomorrow's meeting. As I finally prepared for bed, my phone rang. David Chen, the investment banker who'd been trying to recruit me for years. Elizabeth, he said without preamble, I just heard from Marcus Blackstone. Is it true you're starting your own firm? News travels fast, I replied. In our world, always. I could hear the smile in his voice. Look, I've been wanting to bring you on board for years, but maybe this is better. I have 3 clients who would follow you in a heartbeat. Plus, my sister's investment group has been looking for a financial advisor with experience in Asian markets. David, I haven't even registered the company yet. Details, he dismissed. The question is, are you ready to take this step? Because if you are, you won't be starting from zero. You'll be starting with a client base worth 8 figures annually. After we hung up, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out over London's glittering skyline. For the first time since discovering James's betrayal, I felt something other than hurt and anger. I felt powerful. The conference room at Marianne's law offices was designed to intimidate. All dark wood, leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering vertiginous views of the city. James sat on one side with his lawyer, Gregory Powell, a man whose silver hair and Savile Row suit projected gravitas and expense in equal measure. James looked confident, as always. Why wouldn't he? He'd spent months building his case, aligning allies, manipulating evidence. He expected me to accept his insulting offer, sign his restrictive agreements, and disappear quietly. Marianne sat beside me, elegant in charcoal gray, a thin folder placed precisely before her. I wore a deep burgundy suit I'd never worn to the office. James had once commented that the color was too aggressive for client meetings. Shall we begin? Gregory Powell's voice was cultured, reasonable. I believe we have a settlement offer on the table that Mrs. Hartwick has had time to consider. Ms. Reynolds, I corrected quietly. James sighed theatrically. Elizabeth, please, this needn't be contentious. Marianne smiled thinly. On the contrary, Mr. Hartwick, contention is precisely what we're here for. She opened her folder. We are rejecting your settlement offer in its entirety. Powell raised an eyebrow. That would be unwise. Given the circumstances, it's quite generous. The circumstances, Marianne repeated. You mean the fabricated evidence of my client's supposed instability? The manufactured complaints? The coerced testimony from junior partners? James's expression didn't change, but I noticed his hand tighten around his pen. These are serious allegations, Powell said smoothly. Do you have evidence to support them? Extensive evidence, Marianne replied, including sworn statements from Caroline Phillips detailing how Mr. Hartwick pressured partners to create false documentation of Ms. Reynolds's behavior. She slid a document across the table, as well as evidence of systematic client transfers designed to diminish my client's role in the firm. James's facade cracked slightly. Caroline? That's absurd. She would never— She already has, I interrupted, along with David Singh and Thomas Wells. The color drained from James's face. 3 of the 5 junior partners had turned against him, all people I'd mentored, supported, protected over the years. But let's discuss something more interesting, Marianne continued, pulling out another document. The Anderson Global merger. Powell's practiced composure slipped momentarily. That information is confidential and wholly irrelevant to these proceedings. Is it? Marianne asked innocently. A merger that would double the firm's valuation, deliberately concealed until after my client's equity stake was bought out at a fraction of its worth? That seems quite relevant to me, possibly relevant to the FCA as well. The Financial Conduct Authority, the regulatory body that could destroy the firm's reputation and James's career with a single investigation. James leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. What do you want, Elizabeth? I met his gaze evenly. Originally, just what was fair. My full equity stake, recognition of my contribution to the firm, and the ability to move on with dignity. I paused. But that was before I discovered how methodically you planned to destroy not just our marriage, but my entire professional reputation. That's an exaggeration, is it? I slid my phone across the table, open to an email James had sent to several key clients 3 weeks earlier, suggesting I was taking a mental health sabbatical due to concerning behavior. James stared at the email, then at me, genuine confusion in his eyes. How did you get this? You taught me long ago to cultivate relationships at all levels, James, including with the IT department. I took back my phone. Now, shall we discuss our actual terms? Over the next hour, Marianne outlined our demands. Full market value for my equity stake, paid immediately, not over 10 years, no non-compete clause, a public statement from the firm acknowledging my contributions, and a significant compensation for the defamation campaign. This is extortion, Powell said finally. No, Marianne corrected. This is consequence. The alternative is that we take all evidence of client manipulation, financial misrepresentation, and organized defamation to both the courts and the regulatory authorities. She closed her folder decisively. Your client wouldn't just lose his firm, Mr. Powell. He'd lose his license to practice. James stared at me, a complex mixture of emotions crossing his face: anger, disbelief, and something that might have been a grudging respect. You've changed, he said finally. No, I replied. I've always been this capable. You just never noticed because it served your purposes. As we left the meeting, Marianne looked pleased. They'll counter-offer, but they're cornered. We'll get what we want. Not everything, I said. No amount of money repairs a reputation once it's been damaged. True, she acknowledged. So what will you do about that? I smiled. I'm already doing it. That evening, I hosted a small dinner at my newly purchased office space, a converted warehouse in Clerkenwell with exposed brick walls and enormous windows. Around the table sat Marcus Blackstone, David Chen, Caroline Phillips, and 4 other former clients who had reached out after hearing I was establishing my own firm. As we finished dessert, Marcus raised his glass. To Reynolds Advisory, may your first year bring you the success you deserve. And to new beginnings, added Caroline, who had tendered her resignation from Hartwick and Partners that morning. Later, as the caterers cleared away the dishes, Marcus pulled me aside. Have you seen the industry newsletter today? I shook my head. He showed me his tablet, open to the leading financial services publication. The headline read, Blackstone Developments shifts $300 million portfolio to new advisory firm. The article detailed how one of London's most prestigious property development companies had chosen a newly formed financial consultancy over established firms, a vote of confidence that was already causing ripples through the industry. I may have given an interview, Marcus said with a slight smile, mentioned your exceptional track record, innovative approaches, and impeccable reputation. Hope you don't mind. Mind? I laughed. It's perfect. My phone buzzed with a text from Marianne. They've accepted all terms. Papers ready to sign tomorrow. Congratulations. I looked around at the space that would soon be filled with desks, computers, people, my people. A firm built on my terms, with clients who valued competence over connections, substance over style. James had tried to erase me. Instead, he'd freed me. 6 months later, I stood in the reception area of Reynolds Advisory, watching my team of 15 professionals move purposefully through the open-plan office. The exposed brick walls were now adorned with abstract art in deep blues and greens, colors James had always found too cold for an office environment. Caroline approached, tablet in hand. The Blackstone restructuring is complete. Final tax savings came in at £22 million, 7% higher than our projection. Excellent. Make sure Marcus gets the report today. Already done. She hesitated. Also, James called again. 3rd time this week. I sighed. Since the settlement, James had made several overtures, first professional, suggesting possible collaboration opportunities, then increasingly personal. Last week, he'd sent flowers with a card simply reading, "I miss you." What did he want this time? The same. Dinner to clear the air. He mentioned that Hartwick and Partners is struggling since the Anderson merger fell through. I wasn't surprised. After our settlement became known, Anderson Global had backed out, concerned about management integrity issues. 3 major clients had followed Blackstone's lead and left the firm. James's carefully constructed kingdom was crumbling. "Tell him I'm unavailable," I said, indefinitely. My assistant Kim appeared. "Your 3 o'clock is here. The Singapore investors?" I nodded, straightening my jacket, a vibrant cobalt blue suit that had been sitting unworn in my closet for years because James thought it too showy. The conference room held 5 people, 3 men and 2 women representing one of Singapore's largest sovereign wealth funds. As I entered, they rose, and I recognized their leader immediately. Mei Lin, a formidable investment director whose reputation for thoroughness was legendary. "Ms. Reynolds," she said, extending her hand. "Your reputation precedes you, as does yours, Ms. Lin." We shook hands. "I understand you're looking to diversify your European holdings." She nodded. "We've been with Hartwick and Partners for 7 years, but recent inconsistencies have concerned us." I kept my expression neutral. "I'm familiar with their work, of course. May I ask what specific concerns brought you to us?" May exchanged glances with her colleagues. "Perhaps it would be easier to show you." She opened her laptop, turned it toward me, and played a video clip, James in a meeting, speaking to what appeared to be May's team. His usual smooth confidence was missing, replaced by a barely concealed desperation as he promised exceptional returns and unparalleled access. "This was last week," May explained. "When we expressed concerns about staff turnover, he became defensive, mentioned that former partners had been emotionally unstable and professionally erratic. I maintained my composure with effort. Even now, he was still using the same narrative. Then we spoke with Marcus Blackstone," one of the other team members added. His recommendation was quite emphatic. For the next 2 hours, we discussed their portfolio, their objectives, their concerns. I was direct about what we could deliver and what we couldn't, transparent about our fee structure, and clear about our approach. As they prepared to leave, May lingered behind. "May I speak frankly, Ms. Reynolds? Please. We know what happened at Hartwick and Partners. The financial world is small, and stories travel." She studied me carefully. "It would have been easier to take their settlement and join another established firm. Starting over is bold. Sometimes the only way forward is through," I replied. She nodded, seeming satisfied. "We'll be in touch next week with our decision." After they left, I took a moment alone in the conference room, looking out over the London skyline. The spring sunshine illuminated the city I'd called home for 20 years, the city where I'd built my career, my marriage, and now my own legacy. My phone buzzed with a text from David Chen. "Dinner tonight to celebrate? Heard through the grapevine that Singapore Sovereign is moving their entire European portfolio to you. 500 bumpers under management. Not bad for 6 months' work." News really did travel fast. I texted back my acceptance, then checked my other messages. One was from my sister Kate. "Saw the profile in Financial Times. London's rising star in wealth management. Mom would be so proud. Another from Marianne. James's lawyer called. He wants to renegotiate the settlement terms. Apparently, the firm's valuation has dropped 40% since you left. Told him to take a long walk off a short pier, but more elegantly phrased. The last was from James himself. I was wrong. About everything. Please, just one dinner. For closure, if nothing else. I deleted it without responding. That evening, as I prepared to meet David, I received an unexpected visitor. The security desk called up. There's a Ms. Sophia Taylor here to see you. Says it's urgent. Sophia, James's former assistant. His affair partner. The last person I expected or wanted to see. Curiosity overcame reluctance. Send her up. She looked different from when I'd last seen her. Thinner, her designer clothes replaced by a simple blouse and trousers, her confident demeanor subdued. Elizabeth, she said uncertainly, thank you for seeing me. What can I do for you, Sophia? She twisted her hands nervously. I wanted to apologize for everything. The affair, the way it happened, all of it. I indicated a chair but remained standing myself. Why now? Because I finally understand what he did to you. Her voice trembled slightly. He's doing it to me now. What do you mean? The stories about my competence, my stability, the way he questions my decisions in front of clients, the gradual isolation. She looked up at me. 3 weeks ago, he suggested I take a leave of absence for my emotional well-being. History repeating itself, almost word for word. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I wouldn't wish James's psychological manipulation on anyone. I gave up everything for him, she continued. My reputation, my friendships. I believed him when he said you were unstable, difficult, controlling. She shook her head. But it was never about you, was it? It's about him, who he needs us to be in his story. And who are you in his story now? The unstable younger woman. The mistake. She took a deep breath. I'm leaving the firm. I wanted you to know that and to apologize. For whatever it's worth. As she turned to go, I made a decision that surprised even me. Sophia, I called. Harlow and Bennett is looking for a financial analyst. The partner there, Margaret Harlow. She's tough but fair. Nothing like James. If you're interested, I could put in a word. Sophia looked stunned. Why would you help me? I considered the question carefully. Because breaking free from James's narrative is punishment enough. And because sometimes the best revenge is creating space for others to do the same. After she left, I finished getting ready for dinner, choosing a deep red lipstick I'd rarely worn during my marriage. As I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman who had sat in that conference room a year ago, watching her husband systematically undermine her. My phone rang. Marcus Blackstone. Elizabeth, he said when I answered. I've just left a rather uncomfortable dinner with James. He spent most of it trying to convince me to return to Hartwick and Partners. And? I asked, curious despite myself. And I told him I only work with people I trust implicitly. That ended the conversation rather quickly. He paused. He's not taking the firm's decline well. Mentioned your name about 20 times. I'm mentioned in many conversations these days, I replied lightly. Usually in connection with our clients' successes, not my ex-husband. Marcus laughed, precisely as it should be. Enjoy your evening, Elizabeth. You've earned it. As I stepped into the warm London evening, I felt a sense of completion. James had tried to write my story, the unstable wife, the erratic partner, the professional liability. He'd expected me to accept his narrative and disappear. Instead, I'd written my own story. Reynolds Advisory was now managing over £1 billion in assets. My team had grown from 5 to 15, with plans to expand internationally next year. The industry publications that had once featured James on their covers were now requesting interviews with me. I'd built something meaningful from the ashes of his betrayal, not out of spite or revenge, but because it was what I deserved all along. And as I walked through the city streets toward the restaurant where David waited, I couldn't help but smile at the irony. In trying to erase me, James had only succeeded in setting me free. So, what would you have done in my position? Would you have fought back like I did, or taken a different path? If stories like this keep you hooked, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one.